starting week one, you got to go ahead and circle in, what that week one matchup is. Now, Baker Mayfield, he is out of Cleveland. He is in Carolina. And yesterday, he had his first press conference with the Carolina Panthers, and he spoke on the matchup that is upcoming, obviously week one, against the Cleveland Browns with the Carolina Panthers.
No animosity towards Cleveland. It's a good football town that, gave me the first 4 years of my career, and thankful for those trials and tribulations, all the challenges, a lot to learn from and look back on and reflect, but just really focused on right now and being a Carolina Panther and, pumped up to do so.
Yeah, and Spencer, when it comes to Baker Mayfield, obviously you had the tumultuous offseason and everything like that going on with Cleveland. Now in Carolina, doesn't have the animosity, but when it comes to week one, especially against the Cleveland Browns, this is what he had to say regarding the matchup coming in week one.
Anytime you get to put the pads on, for the first time, it's live fire. It's always a great time. Obviously, it's going to be a special one. It's going to be a home game and playing against a former team. A similar situation of what I've gone through in the past when transferring from college to college. So got to handle it the best way possible. And, my job is to put our team in the best position to win. And however I can help do that, that's what I'm going to do.
So now with both sides kind of looking at, the Browns moving on, Baker Mayfield on to Carolina, do you think it adds a little bit more pressure on both sides when it comes to Baker going to Carolina, playing against his former team in week one, and for the Browns pressure to kind of show that, hey, you know what, we're fine with Jacoby Brissett and we're fine with the roster that we have?
I definitely think there's pressure on both sides. For the Browns, I think it's a conversation in whether it's Jacoby Brissett or not, which I'm assuming at this point most of us assume it is going to be Jacoby Brissett week one. I think for them it's that battle of like, well, hey, if we lose this game, we know what people are going to say, right? Like there's going to be a lot of criticism from outside the building. And I know Kevin Stefanski sort of runs a tight ship. He preaches that we keep things that are external. We don't let that affect us in the locker room. I get that. But they're going to hear that stuff. Naturally, players are going to hear that stuff. And if you start to hear, I also think it could be divisive for the fan base, which is already pretty divisive as is over the Deshaun Watson situation as a whole. So, yeah, I think there's an element of that there where you lose that first game, a lot of questions asked about why you moved on from Baker Mayfield. On the flip side, I don't know if for Carolina there's like this pressure. The pressure for Carolina as a whole, I think, comes from Matt Rule's on the hot seat. We all know that. And he has to win now if he wants to save his job. So I think there's that pressure. I think the pressure that's on the Panthers for that game is solely just about Baker Mayfield, because we know how this guy is. We've spent enough time with him the last 4 years to know he's been very much preaches that chip on your shoulder mentality. It's almost his motto at this point where, anything he perceives as a slight, he tries to use that as motivation. So for him, he's going to have added pressure on himself, I'm sure, because that's what he does. Colin Cowherd calls him out. He internalizes that and uses it as pressure in a game to try to rise the occasion and play a little bit better football. I think the same thing is going to apply here. That's just who Baker is. Sometimes that's backfired. Sometimes it's worked. I guess if you're a Browns fan, maybe you're a little nervous that it's the situation this time around where it works in his favor and he comes out and plays well under that pressure. But yeah, I think for Baker, there's pressure. I think for the Browns, there's pressure, even though they won't tell you that. It's a week one game. At the end of the day, it may not make or break their playoff chances. But especially piggybacking off the last conversation we had, Mac, if you're trying to think about wins that you need to have with Jacoby Brissett, that week one game is a big one if you're trying to steal some wins with Jacoby Brissett before Deshaun Watson gets out there.